At my father's funeral, my stepmother read a will that left everything to her kid. Your dad wanted his real family taken care of. The lawyer cleared his throat. Ma'am, that's not the will I have on file. Her face went white. The reception hall went silent when she said it. 50 people frozen mid-bite, finger sandwiches and deviled eggs suspended between plates and mouths. Everyone staring at Denise standing at the front of the room with my father's will in her trembling hand. Her two sons sat directly behind her in the front row. Brandon and Tyler, both wearing suits that were too nice for men who'd never held steady jobs. Brandon, 32, perpetually between opportunities, smirked at me from across the room. Tyler, 28, living in my father's basement until 3 days ago when Dad's heart finally gave out, didn't even try to hide his satisfaction. As executor of Robert's estate, Denise continued, her voice taking on that performative grief she'd perfected over the past 72 hours. It's my duty to honor his final wishes. She paused for effect, dabbed at dry eyes with a tissue. Robert wanted to make sure his real family was taken care of. Real family. The words hit like a slap. I sat in the back row, hands folded in my lap, watching this woman I'd known for 8 years. The woman who'd married my father 3 years after Mom died, who'd moved into our family home with her adult sons, who'd slowly poisoned every relationship Dad had, prepare to steal everything. The house at 847 Maple Drive goes to my sons, Brandon and Tyler, to be split equally. Denise's voice was steady now, confident. The investment portfolio, valued at approximately $2.3 million, will be divided between Brandon, Tyler, and myself. Robert's stake in Hayes and Associates will be liquidated and the proceeds distributed to— Excuse me, a voice from the side of the room. Mr. Peterson stood up. Gerald Peterson, 73 years old, my father's attorney for 30 years, the man who'd handled Mom's estate, who'd incorporated Dad's consulting business, who'd witnessed every major legal document in my father's life. He was holding a briefcase. I'm sorry to interrupt, Miss Hayes, but I need to ask, voice Jen, where did you get that will? Denise smiled. From Robert in his office, where he kept all his important documents. I see. Mr. Peterson walked toward the front of the room. Everyone watched. And when was it dated? 6 months ago, April 15th. She held up the papers. Right here, notarized and witnessed. Yes, I can see that from here. Mr. Peterson opened his briefcase. The problem, Mrs. Hayes, is that the will you're reading is not the most recent version. The room went completely still. You could hear the air conditioning humming, someone's phone buzzing on silent, my heart pounding so loud I was sure everyone could hear it. What do you mean? Denise stammered. The paper in her hands was shaking now, visible tremors. This is the only will. Robert showed it to me. We discussed it. He wanted to make sure the boys were taken care of. The will you're holding was drafted 6 months ago. Yes. However, Mr. Hayes executed a new will 3 weeks before his death. Mr. Peterson pulled out a document, thick, at least 20 pages. This one. Brandon jumped to his feet. That's impossible. Dad was sick. He was in and out of the hospital. He couldn't have— He was lucid, Mr. Peterson interrupted. I have a signed letter from his physician, Dr. Sarah Martinez at Stanford Medical Center, confirming his mental competency on the date of signing. I also have video documentation of the entire signing process, witnessed by 2 independent parties with no vested interest in the estate. My hands were shaking. I pressed them together harder, kept my face neutral. Denise's eyes found mine across the room, pure, hate, raw, undisguised. This is her doing, she hissed, pointing at me. Emma manipulated. He was dying, confused, on medications. Mrs. Hayes, Mr. Peterson's voice went cold. I've been advised by my client, your late husband, to read the revised will aloud, in this room, in front of these witnesses. He specifically requested it. No. Denise's voice cracked. This is a private family matter. We can handle this in your office. I'm afraid the will explicitly stipulates a public reading. If you refuse to allow it, everything defaults to the American Cancer Society and the Alzheimer's Association. Your choice. Denise's face went from white to red to purple in the span of 5 seconds. She sat down hard in the folding chair. It creaked under the impact. Mr. Peterson adjusted his glasses, opened the document, began reading in a clear, measured voice. I, Robert James Hayes, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and codicils. He paused. Let that sink in. First, to my wife Denise Marie Hayes, I leave the 2015 Honda Civic currently registered in her name, and the full contents of our joint checking account. Wells Fargo. Denise's mouth fell open. The checking account? That's $800. To my stepsons, Brandon Michael Hayes and Tyler James Hayes, I leave my golf clubs stored in the garage and my signed baseball from the 1980 World Series currently displayed in the living. Brandon shot to his— What about the house? The investment? Business? What the fuck is this? Please sit down, Hayes. Mr. Peterson's voice never changed. I'm not finished. Everything else continued, including my home at 847 Maple Drive. My investment portfolio currently valued at approximately $2.3 million. My 25% stake in Hayes and Associates Consulting. My life insurance policy with Northwestern Mutual. My vehicles excluding the Honda Civic and all other assets, real or personal, tangible or intangible, I leave entirely and without restriction to my daughter, Emma Catherine Hayes. The room erupted. Shout, gasps, Denise screaming. That's impossible. We were married 8 years. I have rights. I have legal rights. You signed a prenuptial agreement, Mr. Peterson said calmly, on June 7th, 8 years ago. It clearly states that in the event of Mr. Hayes' death, you would receive a modest settlement be determined by him. The checking account and one vehicle satisfy that obligation. He was manipulated, Tyler shouted, his face red, veins bulging in his neck. That bitch manipulated a dying man. We'll contest this. We'll sue. You're welcome to try. Mr. Peterson pulled out another folder. This one was blue, legal size. However, your stepfather anticipated that possibility. He left a letter explaining his reasoning in detail. Should I read it, or would you prefer to contest the will without knowing what it says? No, Denise said quickly, too quickly. Don't read it. There's no need. Yes, I said from the back of the room. Everyone turned. I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak, but I didn't let it show. Read it, please. I want everyone one to hear. Mr. Peterson nodded, opened the blue folder, pulled out 3 pages of my father's handwriting. I could see it from across the room, the distinctive slant, the heavy pressure he used on the pen. He began reading. I write this letter in full possession of my faculties, knowing my time is short. Dr. Martinez has told me I have perhaps 3 months. I want to explain my decisions while I still can, so there can be no question of my intentions or my mental state. The room had gone completely silent again. I married Denise 3 years after my wife Margaret passed away. I was lonely, devastated by Margaret's death, lost without. Denise was caring. She seemed to understand my grief. I thought I'd found companionship in my final years. What I found was a woman who saw an opportunity. Denise started crying. Loud, Thea sobbed. Nobody moved. Comfort. Within months of our marriage, Denise began pressuring me to update my will, cut my daughter Emma out, to leave everything to our family, by which she meant her sons, 2 grown men who have never held jobs for more than a few months, who moved into my home without paying rent or contributing to household expenses. Brandon's face was scarlet. Tyler was staring at his shoes. She didn't know I'd installed security cameras in my home office. Denise's head snapped up. I have over 40 hours of footage of her and her sons discussing how to convince me to disinherit Emma, how to isolate me from my daughter, how to make sure, and I quote, that ungrateful brat gets nothing. My Aunt Carol gasped, put her hand over her mouth. I have recordings of Brandon calling Emma a gold digger for visiting me in the hospital. I have text messages between Tyler and Denise planning forged document giving them power of attorney. I have evidence of Denise intercepting cards and letters Emma sent me, throwing them away, then telling me my daughter never bothered to write. Several people were crying now. Real tears, not Denise's performance. I have video of Denise going through my files, photographing documents, sending them to her attorney to discuss how to challenge my estate plan. I have recordings of her telling people at church that Emma abandoned me, that she was my only real family, that her boys treated me better than my own daughter ever did. Aunt Carol stood up, walked toward Denise. You told me Emma stopped visiting. You said she was too busy with her career to care about her dying father. He didn't want, Denise started. He asked me every single week if she'd written. Carol's voice shook. Every week he'd ask if I'd heard from Emma. And you told him she'd forgotten him. The truth, Mr. Peterson continued reading, is that Emma visited me 3 times a week. She came to my chemotherapy appointments. She sat with me during the bad days. She held my hand when the pain was unbearable. She did all of this in secret because Denise made it clear that if I acknowledged Emma's presence, if I showed her any favor, Denise would make my final months a living hell. I couldn't hold back the tears anymore. They came hot and fast, streaming down my face. Emma would park 2 blocks away, come in through the back door. We'd have coffee in my office while Denise was at book club or yoga or wherever she went. We'd talk about her mother, about the life we built before Mark died, about how proud I was of her. The will Denise has, the one dated 6 months ago, is one I drafted at her insistence. I signed it knowing it was meaningless. I wanted to see if she would actually try to use it. I wanted to test whether she would respect my final wishes or betray me, even in death. Mr. Peterson looked up, looked directly at Denise. I see she chose betrayal. Denise stood on shaking legs. This is a lie. All of it. He was confused. The medications. I stayed married to Denise because divorce would be expensive and complicated and I was dying anyway. But I made damn sure that my daughter, my only real family, would get what she deserved, what her mother and I worked our entire lives to build. Mr. Peterson folded the letter carefully. There's one more thing, he said. Mr. Hayes left instructions for the immediate transition of the property. Mrs. Hayes, you have 72 hours to vacate the premises. Ms. Hayes is the legal owner as of the reading of this will. Brandon lunged toward me. My Uncle Mike, Dad's younger brother, blocked him. You'll pay for this, Brandon snarled, spit flying from his mouth. We'll sue. We'll contest. We'll tie this up in court for years. With what money? I asked. My voice came out steadier than I felt. You got golf clubs and a baseball. The prenup was signed under duress, Denise screamed. I was coerced. I didn't understand what I was signing. Please try to make that argument, Steve said, voice almost friendly. Mr. Hayes set aside $5,000 to defend this will against any challenge. He estimated, based on consultation with 3 separate litigation attorneys, that it would bankrupt you within 6 months of legal fees. But you're welcome to test that theory. Denise swayed on her feet. Tyler grabbed her arm to steady her, pulled out his phone. I'm calling our lawyer. This is fraud. Elder abuse. With what retainer? I asked. You're both unemployed. Your mother has $800 in her checking account. How exactly are you planning to pay an attorney? The room was so quiet I could hear someone's watch ticking. My father's sister Carol walked over to Denise. You threw away Emma's letters? He didn't want to see them. He asked me every week if she'd written. Carol's voice broke. Every single week. Sometimes twice a week. Has Emma called? Has she sent anything? Does she ask about me? And you told him she didn't care. I was protecting him. You were isolating him. Carol's face was hard, angry. You were cutting him off from the one person he loved most in the world so you could control him, so you could manipulate him into leaving everything to your worthless sons. Get out, Carol said. Get out of this room. You didn't love him. You don't get to cry here. You don't get to play the grieving widow. Get out. Denise grabbed her purse. Her hands were shaking so hard she dropped it twice. Tyler picked it up for her. Brandon stormed past them both, shoving through the crowd of relatives and Dad's friends, knocking over a chair on his way out. At the door, Denise turned, looked at me one last time. You turned him against us, she said. You poisoned him. You manipulated a sick old man. No, I said quietly. You did that yourself. You'll regret this. When you're alone in that big house with all that money and no family. I have family. I looked around the room, at Aunt Carol, at Uncle Mike, at my father's college friends, at the business partners who'd known me since I was a child. They're right here. The people who actually loved him, who actually cared about him, who didn't see him as a bank account to raid. Denise's face crumpled. She turned and walked out. Her sons followed. I heard heard Tyler's voice in the hallway. We can still contest it. We can find a lawyer who'll work on contingency. With what evidence? Brandon's voice was harsh. He has us on video. On fucking video. Planning to screw Emma over. Their voices faded as they left the building. The room stayed silent for a long moment. Then Aunt Carol hugged me. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I believed her. I thought you'd abandoned him. I thought, it's okay. It's not okay. I should have known better. I should have questioned it. Uncle Mike appeared at my other side. Your dad made me promise not to tell anyone about the secret visit. He said if Denise found out, she'd make his last months miserable. He didn't want to spend his final days fighting with. I know. He told me the same thing. Mr. Peterson approached his brief. Ms. Hayes, we need to schedule a meeting, go over the estate in detail. There are some additional assets. Father didn't mention will, retirement, small property, and some stock need trans. How much total? Voice shake. Including the house, the business stake, and all investments, approximately $3.8 million. I sat down. Someone handed me water. He also left you something else, Mr. Peterson said. Something not in the will. He pulled out a small box. Inside was a flash drive. What is this? Videos. Your father recorded messages for you, one for every birthday until you turn 50. He wanted to make sure he'd always be there, even after he was gone. I started crying again. Couldn't stop. Didn't try. 3 days later, I went to the house. My house now. 847 Maple Drive. The place I'd grown up. The place Mom had decorated with such care. The place Denise had slowly transformed into something that looked like a hotel. Sterile, impersonal. All traces of my mother erased. Denise had left. She'd taken the Honda Civic, her clothes, and anything small enough to fit in the car. She'd left the furniture, the dishes, even the photos. Not the family photos of me and Mom and Dad. Those had disappeared years ago. But the new photos. Denise and her sons. Denise and my father. Both smiling faces that lied about the relationship beneath. I walked through the house slowly. Remembered. Mom making breakfast in the kitchen. Dad reading the paper in his chair. Family dinners at the table Denise had replaced with something more modern. I found the office. Dad's sanctuary. Denise had redecorated it too. She'd thrown out his old desk, his comfortable chair, his bookshelves, but she'd left the file cabinet. Inside, I found everything. The cameras, small, discreet, still recording to a hard drive hidden behind a false panel. The files, meticulously organized. Every conversation transcribed. Every text message printed and dated. A timeline, spanning 3 years, documenting every manipulation, every lie, every attempt to isolate him from me, and a letter addressed to me, in Dad's handwriting. My dearest Emma, if you're reading this, then I'm gone. And if you're reading this, then Denise tried to use that fake will. I'm sorry you had to go through that. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from her cruelty one last time. I want you to understand why I did things this way, why I stayed married to her, why I let her think she was winning. After your mother died, I was lost. I couldn't function, couldn't imagine a future without her. Denise seemed like a life raft, someone who understood grief, someone who could help me survive. I was wrong. Within months, I saw who she really was. A woman who saw a widower with assets and no one to protect him. A woman who brought her adult sons into my home like they were entitled to everything your mother and I built. I could have divorced her, but by then I was sick. The cancer had started. Divorce would have been expensive, time-consuming, and Denise would have fought for every penny. She would have made my final months a nightmare of legal battles and court appearances. So I played along. I let her think she was manipulating me, let her think she was winning, and I documented everything. The cameras were my insurance policy. The secret visits from you were my lifeline. Every Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday, you'd come through the back door and we'd have our coffee. We'd talk about your mother. We'd laugh. We'd cry. We'd be father and daughter again, even if it was in secret. I'm sorry I asked you to hide. I'm sorry I couldn't acknowledge you publicly. But Denise was vindictive. She would have punished both of us if she'd known. Now she has nothing, and you have everything. Not because of the money, though I hope it gives you security and freedom, but because you were loyal. You were kind. You were there when I needed you most, even when it meant parking 2 blocks away and sneaking in like a teenager. I love you, Emma. I've always loved you. From the moment you were born until the moment I die and beyond, you are your mother's daughter. Strong, compassionate, real. Don't let Denise's bitterness poison you. Don't let her son's anger make you doubt yourself. You earned this, not through manipulation or lies, but through love. Live well, live happy, and know that your mother and I are so very proud of you. All my love, Dad. I read the letter 3 times, cried through all 3 readings, then I put it in a frame, hung it in the office, started the process of undoing what Denise had done to the house. The legal challenge came 2 weeks later, exactly as Mr. Peterson had predicted. Denise hired an attorney, somehow, possibly by maxing out credit cards or borrowing from Loan Shark. A lawyer named Richard Brennan, fresh out of law, probably desperate for any paying client. He filed a petition to contest the will, claimed undue influence, mental incompetence, fraud, elder abuse. Every argument he thinks. Mr. Peterson responded with 47-page document, the video, text message, the transcribed conversation, the medical record proving Dad, the statement from Dr. Martinez, from Dad's business partners, from friends who'd visited him in his final month, the prenuptial agreement Denise had signed, reviewed by 3 separate attorneys, negotiated over 2 months, signed willingly with full understanding of its terms. The hearing was scheduled for 6 weeks later. Denise, Brandon, and Tyler showed up in their best clothes, probably the same suit they'd worn to the funeral, now looking rumpled and desperate. Richard Brennan tried his best. He was young, inexperienced, out of his depth. Judge Patricia Wainwright, 62 years old, 35 years on the bench, notorious for having zero tolerance for bullshit, listened to his argument for approximately 12 minutes before holding up. Counselor, do you have any evidence to support these claims of undue influence? Your Honor, the circumstances are suspicious. The timing of the will, 3 weeks before his death, when he knew he was was dying, when most people would update their final wishes? That timing? Well, yes, but do you have medical evidence of incompetence? His physician says he was competent, but nothing. Do you have evidence that Ms. Hayes manipulated her father? The relationship was secretive because the stepmother was hostile and controlling. I've reviewed the videos, counselor. All 47 hours of them. Your clients, she looked at Denise, Brandon, and Tyler with undisguised disgust, were planning to defraud Mr. Hayes and disinherit his biological daughter. They were caught. This will stand. Your Honor, this will stand. Case dismissed. And Mr. Brennan, in the future, I'd suggest getting all the facts before filing frivolous petitions. This was a waste of this court's time. Gavel down. Over in 90 seconds. Denise collapsed in her chair. Brandon helped her up. They left without looking at me. In the hallway, Richard Brennan approached me. Ms. Hayes, I want to apologize. They didn't tell me about the videos, about the evidence. They said they made it sound like you'd manipulated your father, stolen from them. They lied to you, I said. It's what they do. I'm not going to charge them for my time. I can't in good conscience bill them for a case they misrepresent this badly. That's kind of you. He looked embarrassed. I'm also never taking a will contest again without reviewing every piece of evidence. This was humiliating. I almost felt sorry for almost. 6 months later, I finished renovating the house, brought back Mom's furniture from storage, the pieces Denise had thrown out that I'd rescued from Goodwill and kept in a storage unit for 8 years, hung Mom's photos back up, repainted the walls in the colors she'd chosen, made it home again. Aunt Carol came over for dinner on the first night I slept there. It looks like your mother's house again, she said, crying happy tears, like coming back in time. That's what I wanted. We ate at Mom's table, used Mom's dishes, talked about Dad, about Mom, about the family we'd been before Denise. I got a letter from her, you know, Carol said. From Denise. She's living in a studio apartment in Oak, working as a receptionist. Brandon and Tyler are living with all 3 of them in a 1-bedroom. Good. She wanted me to convince you to give them some money. Said it was unfair that you got everything. Said your father would have wanted. My father left them exactly what he wanted them to have. Golf clubs and a baseball. Carol laughed. I told her that. Told her I'd seen the videos. Told her she was lucky you didn't press charges for fraud or elder abuse. Mr. Peterson suggested that. Pressing charges. He said we had enough evidence for a criminal case. Why didn't you? Thought about it. About Denise spending 8 years married to a man she didn't love. Pretending to care about him. Isolating him from his daughter. All for money she never got. About Brandon and Tyler. Middle-aged men living with their mother in a studio apart. Facing the reality their meal gone. About Dad's final years. Spent playing along with people who saw him as nothing more than an inheritance to claim. Because she's already living the consequence, I said. Every day she wakes up in that studio apartment with her adult sons. Every day she goes to work as a receptionist making $13 an hour. Every day she knows she spent 8 years on a con that failed. That's punishment enough. 1 year after Dad's death, I started the foundation, the Robert and Margaret Hayes Foundation for Cancer Support. Used $500,000 from the estate to fund it. Provides financial assistance to families dealing with cancer treatment costs. Pays for gas money to get to appointments. Covers co-pays for medications. Helps with rent when patients can't work. The things that destroyed families when there wasn't help. Aunt Carol runs it. Uncle Mike sits on the board. Dad's business partners fund it. We help 300 families a year. It's not enough. It'll never be enough, but it's something. I still watch the videos Dad made, one for each birthday. This year I turned 33. The video was labeled Emma 33. I opened it on my birthday morning. Dad appeared on screen, thin, bald from chemo, but smiling. Happy birthday, sweetheart. If you're watching this, you're 33 years old. Your mother was 33 when she had you. It's a good age, a strong age. He talked for 15 minutes about being proud of me, about hoping I was happy, about the foundation he knew I'd create. That's who I was. At the end, he said, I hope Denise is long gone from your life. I hope you've moved on. I hope you've forgiven me for not standing up to her while I was alive. I hope you understand why I did things the way I did. I paused the video. I understand, Dad, I said to the screen. I understand. 3 years after the funeral, I ran into Tyler at a coffee shop. He looked older, tired, worn down by life. He saw me, started to turn away. Tyler, I called. He stopped, turned back. We stood there awkwardly. How's your mom? I asked. Fine, working, still angry. He looked at his shoes. How are you? Good, really good. I saw the foundation, online. It's good work. Thanks. I wanted to. He stopped, started again. I wanted to apologize for what we did, what we tried to do. It was wrong. We were wrong. Yes, you were. My mom convinced us you were the enemy, that you'd abandoned your dad, that we deserved the inheritance because we were there. But we weren't there. Not really. We were just waiting for him to die so we could cash out. I didn't say anything. What was there to say? I got a job, he continued. Real job. Construction. It's hard work, but it's honest. I'm not the person I was 3 years ago. Good. I don't expect you to forgive me, or Brandon, or Mom. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry, and I'm glad your dad left everything to you. You deserved it. We didn't. He walked away. I watched him go, and I thought about my father's letter, about living well, about not letting bitterness poison me, about being my mother's daughter, strong, compassionate, real.